Part 43. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 459. The black pepper fried whale meatballs made by Sanji made everyone very happy to eat. Especially after receiving compliments from the ladies, Sanji was extremely proud. After a delicious meal, all the black pepper fried whale meatballs in Sanji's pot were eaten. "It's so delicious," Usopp said after stroking his big belly. "I can't eat any more." Chopper was also completely full. Luffy was lying on the deck like a real ball and said with satisfaction, "I'm really full this time." Rog, Zoro, and King of Ninja are also very satisfied. "The dishes the chef made this time are really good," Zoro also praised. The King of Ninja said, "Sanji's food is really delicious." Rog said, "It's really satisfying." Nami, Robin, and the goddess of spring water were more restrained. Although they ate a lot, they didn't eat like the others until their stomachs burst. Sanji didn't eat too much because he kept complimenting the ladies. "Okay, ladies. Here is the final dessert. Please taste it." Sanji brought out the sandwiches, strawberry cake, and orange bread. "Thank you so much, Sanji," Robin said. "It's rare that you have prepared so many things," the spring water goddess said gently. "Sanji, you are the best," Nami praised. Sanji heard the compliments from the three ladies, and began to spin and dance. "I'm so happy. It's a gentleman's honor to serve ladies," Sanji said with a high chest. Sanji quickly made black tea for Nami and the others. The dining table on the deck is brightly lit. There was still mist all around and above. After resting for a while here after dinner, everyone drank some coffee or juice. While chatting, Usopp looked at the Ninja King and the spring water goddess. "I didn't expect that when I first came to Gaia Island, I encountered bad guys so soon. You were also involved. It delayed your respective actions," Usopp said. At this point, others also looked at the Ninja King and the spring water goddess. The King of Ninja said very optimistically, "I didn't expect it. I thought we were going to separate. But in the end we had to fight side by side again." The spring water goddess said gently, "I can stay with you for a while longer. Maybe it's my fate." Luffy said, "Ah, we are all happy together." Sanji said lovingly, "Indeed, it would be such a pleasure to be able to spend more time with the goddess." Nami said to the spring goddess and the King of Ninjas, "It's great that you can stay a little longer." Zoro looked at the Ninja King and said, "Oh, we can communicate more." Rog looked at the surrounding fog and said, "But those enemies are the men of Grandet, the mayor of Magic Valley City. The opponent's power seems to be very large. We have caused them such heavy losses, I am afraid they will not be able to enter there." Usopp said, "Well, your analysis makes sense. We have eliminated hundreds of enemies. In this way, the other party must have designated us as the most wanted criminals. And considering that the other party has powerful warships, we still don't want a good landing there." Nami said with some regret, "I originally thought that Gaia Island would be as prosperous as it appears. I didn't expect such evil forces to exist." Nami and others originally thought that Gaia Island was very stable and peaceful because it was a prosperous trade transit port on the Great Line. But he never expected that there would be such a powerful existence as the mayor of Grandet and the security forces. Luffy said unconvinced, "That Mayor Golan, just beat him away." Nami said, "It's not that easy. And you also saw the opponent's powerful warship. Bai was pursued by the Gaia Knight and the Patroness, two heavy warships, which seriously threatened the Discovery. After all, although everyone is strong, the threat of warships with heavy artillery in naval battles is too great. There are many strong men in this world who can shake the earth, but they are still afraid of some weapons. Weapons and physical strength can always compete. It seems that considering the safety of several ladies, we absolutely cannot continue to land on Gaia Island," Sanji said after thinking. "Please think about others," Usopp said dissatisfied. But Usopp also breathed a sigh of relief. Because now no one continues to advocate landing on Gaia Island. Sauron added, then how can we find out the news about going to Sky Island? Because of the information in the logbook obtained from the wreckage of the St. Bliss, to go to Sky Island, you need to get news from Gaia Island. There is no way to land on Gaia Island now, so there is no place to inquire about news. This really needs to be thought about. Maybe if we go to the area near Gaia Island, we can find some clues, Rog said. I have no choice but to do this, Usopp said. When everyone was discussing on the deck of the Discovery in the fog. Outside the huge fog, two heavy warships, the Gaia Knight and the Patroness, are moored nearby. After the pursuit, the officers and soldiers on the two warships also understood that the Discovery was constantly creating fog to cover themselves while it was moving. So the fog is no longer moving, which means that the Discovery inside is also stopped. However, due to fear of the fog, the two heavy warships still did not enter. And their duty is to monitor the movements of the mist. There was also a grand dinner party on the decks of the two warships, the Gaia Knight and the Patron Saint. On the deck of the Gaia Knight, groups of tables were set, topped with roast turkey, grilled sardines, grilled scallops, grilled conch, vegetable salad, baguette, grilled toast. The officers and soldiers sat around various dining tables and enjoyed the feast to their heart's content. It's delicious. It feels so good to eat. It's really worth it to hang out on a warship. Today's food is particularly delicious. The officers and soldiers ate happily. The security forces are treated very well. In fact, Mayor Grandet's security forces are all composed of mercenaries. Many people who were desperate in other places were recruited by the mayor of Grandet and given favorable treatment. These troops are still quite loyal to Grandet. Whether it's food or salary, these security forces are very generous. This is especially true for troops on warships. For Grandet, although he is a super stingy man in Demon Valley City. However, Grandet gave extremely generous treatment to the security forces. Because armed force is the basis of its rule. Without the security forces, Mayor Grandet would not be able to rule in Magic Valley City for a long time. Naturally, there is no other status and wealth. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 460. Closest to the bow. The captain of the Gaia Knight and senior officers sat around a dining table to eat together. At the dining table, everyone is enjoying the food. The captain and senior officers enjoyed exquisitely grilled steak and lobster. The captain cut a piece of grilled steak with a knife and fork, put it in his mouth and drank a glass of red wine. He looked in the direction of the mist. In this mist of patterns was the Discovery they were chasing. It's a tough nut to crack, the captain sighed. There is a lot of fog, and they know the strength of the other party. The captain of the Cavalier de Gaia has been in constant contact with the command of the forces of the security forces and the mayor of Grandet. Learned that more than half of the elite Third Army Corps had been wiped out. Although warships at sea have great advantages, it is not ruled out that the opponent has the means to counterattack. Captain, do we want to keep monitoring? An officer said. The captain said to the officers, Mayor Grandet gave the order, and the enemy must be completely annihilated. After listening to his words, the officer fell silent. Another officer asked the captain, so after we sink this warship, will we start salvaging the gold? The captain said, of course it must be salvaged. This time we suffered heavy losses due to this group of pirates. Not only the gold but also the bodies of the pirates must be salvaged. Only in this way can we make up for the losses suffered by the security forces. Heavy losses. The captain of the Gaia Knight has already figured out that it is difficult for everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates to be captured. So he thought that the only way to salvage the corpses of all the people was. Looking at the mist, the captain and his officers could only wait for the opportunity. Time passed minute by minute, and finally it was morning next door. On the deck of the Discovery in the morning, everyone was already up. Robin walked on the deck, and she looked at the white mist around the ship. "Sister Robin, you're up so early," Sanji said enthusiastically. Robin looked at Sanji politely. Then Nami and the spring water goddess also walked to the deck. Rog and Saran also arrived on the deck. Of course Sanji is not interested in anyone other than ladies. Sanji came to Nami's side and said, "Sister Nami and the goddess are here. Okay, I will prepare breakfast for everyone later." Nami looked around while feeling the surrounding environment with her body. What happened? There seems to be a sea breeze here. Although it won't be very big, Nami said. Nami knows that the sea breeze is about to blow through the feeling of the surrounding environment. Rog and Saran looked around, and they could indeed feel the faint sea breeze. Rog said, "In this case, the fog will be blown away." Usopp was suddenly startled, and then began to look around nervously. "The fog will be blown away, and we will be exposed," Usopp said nervously. Sanji looked at him and said, "We sailed for a long time under the cover of fog yesterday, and we have already gotten rid of the enemy." Rog looked at the mist around him and said, "It's just as good as this. Yesterday, after Rog used the mist tree, the people have indeed sailed a long way. But the fog does more than protect Discovery. It also blocks everyone's view. Therefore, everyone here is not sure whether they are still being followed." However, Sanji quickly cooked a delicious breakfast for everyone to enjoy. After everyone continued to chat and eat at the dining table, they again prepared to unfurl the sails and continue the sailing school. The sails on the 3 giant wooden masts on the deck of the Discovery were pulled down. The warship began to move again. While Discovery continues to move, the mist tree on the deck was still spewing out mist. Under the cover of fog, Discovery continues its flight school. The sea breeze is also constantly strengthening. However, behind the fog, the Gaia Knight and the patron saint also discovered that the fog started to move. On the deck of the Gaia Knight, the captain and senior officers looked into the fog together. The fog began to move. It is clear that the Discovery inside continues to start flight school. The captain of the Gaia Knight saw the fog move. However, he also felt that the surrounding sea wind began to grow stronger. "I'm afraid the fog, like the sea breeze, is about to disperse," said the captain of the Gaia Knight. On the deck of another patroness, the captain of this warship also stood near the bow, looking at the moving fog and feeling the increasingly powerful sea breeze. The sea breeze came just in time. It was too calm yesterday, but they were able to hide in the fog. But when the sea breeze blows away the fog, the sea will be filled with blood, the captain of the patron saint said. Whether it is the Gaia Knight or the patron saint, the officers and soldiers on the decks of the 2 warships raised the sails and kept the rudder steady, and followed closely behind the mist. The Discovery is sailing, but the surrounding fog continues to dissipate. Usopp saw the surrounding fog dissipating and said with some concern, "I hope they won't follow." Luffy said excitedly, "Finally I can see the sun again." The sea breeze is getting stronger and stronger, and the fog is disappearing. The fog began to blow away, and the empty sunlight once again illuminated the deck. Chopper stretched his waist, enjoying the long-lost sunshine. "It's so comfortable," Chopper said. "The fog is constantly being blown away." Finally, the sea breeze also became quite strong. But at this moment, Saran suddenly looked behind the Discovery. There are 2 huge ship shadows chasing the warship there. He was suddenly startled and said, "Something is following us." After hearing these words, Rog, Sanji, and Luffy suddenly turned their heads to the sea behind the ship. Usopp also felt a chill running down his spine. "No way!" Usopp slowly turned his head to the back of the ship with some disbelief. "I saw 2 warships chasing Dangjang. They are really coming!" Usopp shouted in horror. Unexpectedly, the 2 warships yesterday were still chasing even under the cover of fog on the Discovery. Although they didn't dare to venture into the fog, they have been tracking the explorer according to the fog. Sanji looked at the two warships and said, "You are so patient." Sauron held the scabbard on his waist with his hand and said, "It looks like it's going to be another fierce battle." Rog said, "The battle is still coming." Luffy said, "They are coming, wow." The Ninja King said, "The other party's persistence is beyond imagination." Nami looked ugly and said, "It's too scary." Robin and Fountain were silent. Usopp and Chopper cried together. The opponents were two heavy warships loaded with heavy artillery, and a bloody battle was inevitable. On the decks of the two warships, the Gaia Knight and the Patroness. The two captains and the officers and soldiers saw clearly the discovery that appeared after the fog in front dissipated. "This is our prey." The two captains actually said the same thing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 461. Whether it is the Gaia Knight or the Patroness, the officers and soldiers on the two heavy warships are doing their best to control the sails. Two heavy warships bit the stern of the Discovery tightly. The captain of the Gaia Knight said, "Order the bow artillery to prepare." There is a huge circular turret on the bow of the Gaia Knight, and the turret has two heavy artillery pieces with a diameter of 1 meter in 2 units. After receiving the order, the officers and soldiers operating the fort acted quickly. Two heavy artillery shells were stuffed into the breech from the back, and the soldiers responsible for calculating the ballistics quickly calculated. The officer in charge of the fort is responsible for turning the fort in preparation for attack. The heavy turret on the bow of the Patroness is also undergoing alignment. The bow turrets of the two heavy warships were all aimed at the Discovery in front. Launch. The captain of the Gaia Knight used a telephone bug to give the order for the bombardment. After the order was issued, there were two alarming sounds. Two heavy artillery shells were fired from the two heavy artillery guns on the bow heavy turret of the Gaia Knight. Two heavy artillery shells cut through the airflow above the sea and flew towards the Discovery. Rog and Sauron, who were on the deck of the Exploration, saw the two heavy artillery shells coming. But the speed of the shells was too fast to be intercepted at all. Sauron jumped up and wanted to cut over. However, the force and airflow mixed with the shells make it difficult for people to approach. Two heavy shells hit the stern of the Discovery. Boom, rumble, rumble. There was a violent explosion on the stern of the Discovery. The steel and wood stern was badly damaged. A raging fire burned. The stern of the Discovery was wrapped in flames, and thick smoke filled the air and blew to the deck forward in the sea breeze. Cough, 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 cough. Usopp stood up hard. The Discovery was hit by two heavy artillery shells just now, and the whole warship trembled violently. Almost everyone was knocked down. Roger also stood up hard, looking at the messy stern of the bombed ship. The stern of the Discovery was severely damaged in the previous battle with the Seagulls and the White Whale pirates, otherwise it would not have been hit so badly by two heavy artillery shells. Oops, what about the others? Roger looked around. Chopper was a little dizzy from the shock. We are under attack. Chopper stood up, and then he changed shape quickly, and his body began to swell, turning into a strong human form. Nami shrank her body together in fear, closed her eyes and said, "It's so scary." At this time, Sanji hugged Nami with his chest. "Sister Nami, the gentleman will protect you resolutely," Sanji said lovingly. Luffy stood up and looked around. He was surprised to see the raging fire at the stern. "Our ship was attacked," Luffy said in surprise. Zoro was standing on the deck of the Discovery. He held Yuzukuru and Kaititsu in his hands, and held the word Wado in his mouth. In addition to the fast speed of the shell just now, it also flew so suddenly that he couldn't intercept it. At this moment, the artillery on the heavy turret on the bow of the Patroness also fired. Two heavy artillery shells flew over. This time the two heavy shells hit the rearmost giant wooden mast of the Discovery. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. The giant wooden mast was mortally damaged and began to fall. Boom! There was a violent shaking on the deck of Discovery under the huge wooden mast. Only 4 heavy artillery shells caused great damage to the Discovery. Of course, the heavy artillery range and power of the heavy artillery equipped on the bows of the Gaia Knight and the Patron Saint are amazingly powerful. However, the Discovery has encountered fierce battles many times before, and it has been damaged. Naturally, it would be so bad to be attacked by the opponent's powerful weapons. Don't panic, everyone, quickly stabilize the ship. And prepare to fight back, Sanji said quickly. Okay, Rog and the others said. Rog came to Usopp's side and said, okay, there are weapons on the Discovery. Let's use these weapons to fight back. Usopp said, okay, okay. Roger and Usopp leave the deck together and move towards the lower cabin behind the stern. Rogue and Usopp arrived at the lower cabin at the stern of the Discovery. There are 4 heavy artillery here. Just now, only the poop above the stern of the ship was hit by a cannonball. It's still intact here. Okay, here are these heavy artillery. Use them to counterattack the enemy, Rog said. Okay. Use these big guys to let the other side have a taste of our power, Usopp said. Rog helped Usopp load all 4 heavy artillery. Usopp began to target the enemy warship. On the deck of the Gaia Knight, the captain and officers and soldiers were extremely happy to see the Discovery after being bombarded. Long live the pirates were bombarded. The Gaia Knight and the security force warships are extremely powerful. No one can beat us. The officers and soldiers cheered together. The captain of the Gaia Knight still had a stern expression on his face. He looked at the Discovery, which was smoking and burning. Although the Discovery was bombed, it still sailed smoothly. Continue to load and prepare to fire. The captain continued to issue orders. The Gaia Knight's forward turret reloads and takes aim. But at this moment, suddenly there were flashes of fire on the deck below the stern of the Discovery. 4 cannon shots sounded simultaneously. 4 shells flew. The Gaia Knight suffered 1 hit in her bow battery. 3 other shells hit the forward hull of the Gaia Knight. The heavy warship shuddered. What, the other party can actually fight back? The captain was a little shocked. He wasn't shocked by the Discovery. He observed the Discovery during the interception before and found that the Discovery itself carried a lot of heavy artillery. However, according to the information, it is known that the members of the opposing pirate group are only 10 people. Can there be such a powerful gunner here? What shocked the captain even more was when the smoke from the gun turret at the front of the bow of the Gaia Knight cleared. There is actually a dent in the center top of the fort. Although the fort made of steel was not destroyed. But that indentation clearly showed that the opponent had aimed and hit the turret. The opponent is just a group of young pirates, but they actually have a gunner with such shooting ability, the captain of the Gaia Knight said in shock. Inside the lower deck at the stern of the Discovery, Usopp and Rogue saw the Gaia Knight warship being shot. After the warship Gaia Knight was hit by a shell, thick smoke billowed out. Great, Usopp said. It's really accurate, Rogue praised. Usopp gave himself a proud thumbs up. After loading, Usopp tied the pull ropes of the 4 heavy artillery together. When it's time to fire, pull the cord sharply to launch 4 shells. In this way, the 4 shells hit the target together. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 462. However, although the shelling just now hit the opponent's Gaia Knight warship, it did not destroy the opponent. So we still need to continue shelling. However, the 2 warships of the security forces were not idle. The 2 heavy warships Gaia Knight and Patronus opened fire again. 4 heavy artillery shells flew over again. This time 4 heavy shells flew rapidly towards the Discovery. Boom 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 boom. With 4 loud bangs, the hull of the Discovery was severely bombed and damaged again. The entire huge warship shook violently. "I'm going to be killed," Nami shouted in pain on the deck. Sanji said while steering the ship, "Sister Nami, don't be afraid. I will protect you. Just look at me." Sanji began to steer hard. Sanji's ability at the helm is really good. The hull of the Discovery swayed from side to side, actively avoiding the attack. Usopp and Roger, who were on the lower deck of the stern, continued to try to bombard each other's warship. The shells were also fired from the stern of the Discovery one after another, hitting the Gaia Knight and the Patroness. The Goddess of Spring is also in the stern area. She raised the iron axe and whispered a spell in her mouth. Along with the magic spell, a strong wind formed around the iron axe. Then it changed into dozens of wind knife carries. Accompanied by 2 cannon shots, 2 heavy artillery shells were fired from the turret of the Patroness. Hell of the wind! Dozens of wind blades shot out. These wind blades hit the 2 incoming heavy shells. There were 2 violent explosions. Boom, rumble, rumble. 2 shocking explosions occurred above the tail of Discovery. After the explosion, the airflow around the explorer trembled violently. The impact of the wind was stronger than the sea breeze. Sauron also rushed to the stern of the Discovery. This time the battery on the bow of the Gaia opened fire. 2 heavy artillery shells flew over. 2 swords. Eagle wave. Sauron's 2 armed Geash and Yukino crossed and slashed forward together. 2 sword chi flew forward. 2 heavy cannonballs also intersected with the sword energy. Boom, rumble, rumble. 2 more violent explosions sounded. 2 heavy artillery shells exploded violently on the sea. Zoro looked at the fire after the explosion. It is difficult to intercept such heavy artillery shells fired by the opponent's warships using Yamashao. But it can be effectively resisted with long-range attacks. However, during the chasing and fighting between the Discovery and the 2 security forces warships, the Discovery suffered more and more damage. Originally, this warship was damaged in the battle between the Seagulls and the Beluga pirates. Now being attacked by 2 warships together, the losses suffered continue to increase. However, the 2 heavy warships, the Gaia Knight and the Patroness, were unable to truly sink the Discovery. Although it has an advantage in firepower, it is unknown when the shelling will sink the Discovery. On the Patroness warship, the captain saw that the Discovery had persisted for a long time. It hasn't been sunk for so long. It seems that we need to use the strongest weapons. Use anti-ship torpedoes. The captain gave the order. Patroness began to prepare anti-ship torpedoes. In the mid-hull of the Patroness, there are 4 torpedo tubes. Soldiers operate this torpedo tube. Aim it obliquely at the sailing Discovery. The officer in charge of the anti-ship torpedoes ordered the soldiers to mechanically power up the torpedo tubes. These anti-ship torpedoes are powered like giant wind-up toys. After getting enough power, you can travel enough distance. The direction is already calibrated, ready to launch. The officer ordered. 4 anti-ship torpedoes were manipulated by the soldiers and aimed at the Discovery ahead. Emission. The officer gave the order. The soldiers pressed the button, and the quadruple torpedo tubes fired out an anti-ship torpedo. The first anti-ship torpedo reached the sea Wenjing. This anti-ship torpedo really swam towards the Discovery like a galloping sea fish. Then more than 10 seconds later, the second anti-ship torpedo was fired into the sea. Then came the third anti-ship torpedo. Finally, the fourth anti-ship torpedo was also fired into the sea. The 4 anti-ship torpedoes swam towards the Discovery at a distance. The reason why the 4 anti-ship torpedoes are launched at intervals is to keep the distance properly. Because I am worried that the Discovery will have a certain amount of evasion. Therefore, the 4 anti-ship torpedoes separated by a certain distance can really hit the Discovery. The Discovery is moving erratically from side to side under Sanji's helm in order to avoid being hit. Discovery's hull was severely damaged. Billowing smoke and flames raged. 4 anti-ship torpedoes quickly approached Discovery. The speed of the 4 anti-ship torpedoes is much slower than that of the artillery shells, but they can still catch up to the Discovery. However, Discovery is moving erratically around Wencheng. The first and second torpedoes passed by the side of the Discovery one after another. A third anti-ship torpedo struck Discovery amidships. The bomb sight on top of the torpedo began to explode. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded. The Discovery's hull shook violently. It wasn't even just a shock. The hull of the entire Discovery has even been lifted up from the back half. Then the hull of the warship fell back to the sea. But the disaster is not over yet. The fourth anti-ship torpedo also hit the middle of the Discovery's hull. Boom! There was another violent explosion that shocked the ground. The Discovery hull was lifted again. But this time, almost the entire hull was lifted. The Discovery is a meter-long warship. Discovery is back on the sea this time. But there were already 2 huge holes in the bottom of this meter warship. Seawater poured crazily into the cabin of Discovery. On the deck of the Discovery, everyone was shocked by tremors. Now they all stood up reluctantly. Chopper stood up hard and said, "What's going on?" Sanji was also standing at the rudder, looking forward suspiciously. Suddenly there was a violent explosion at the bottom of the ship. The explosion was powerful, and it was not caused by shells at all. The shells could only hit the deck and hull. The opponent's attack on the bottom of the ship could only have used that kind of weapon. "Could it be that we were attacked by a torpedo?" Sanji said thoughtfully. Nami's face also became extremely ugly. The Ninja King said, "I'll go down and take a look." The Ninja King quickly jumped off the side of the Discovery's deck. Discovery was hit by an anti-ship torpedo, which severely damaged the bottom of the ship. As a result, the hull was flooded, and even the warship came to a near stop and continued its navigation training on the sea at a turtle speed. On the deck of the Patroness aft, the captain and other officers and soldiers saw the Discovery and stopped. "Haha, the prey is finally unable to move," the captain said. "Now Discovery is incapacitated and can be at their mercy." Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 463. On the Discovery side, after being hit by an anti-ship torpedo, Rog and Usopp also rushed to the deck. "What's going on?" Usopp looked around anxiously. Rog looked around. Apart from seeing the mess on the deck, he also felt that the surrounding scenery had stopped. Or the ship stopped. "Could it be that he was hit by a torpedo?" Rog said. Luffy looked at the sea behind him and said, "We're catching up." Rog and Usopp looked towards the sea behind the Discovery together. "I saw the Gaia Knight and the Patroness catching up one after another." 2 heavy warships surrounded him from the left and right sides. Gaia Knight is to the left of Discovery and Patroness is to the right. "What a tragedy," Usopp said, holding his head. The heavy artillery on the sides of the 2 heavy warships was aimed at the Discovery. Rogue, Zoro, Sanji and Luffy all looked around. It is already in a highly passive state. 2 enemy warships can fire deadly shells at any time. The captains of the 2 warships issued the order after the artillery preparations were completed. "Fire! Fire!" Then there was a loud cannon. Swarms of shells were fired. The Gaia Knight and Patroness fired countless shells from both sides. These shells hit the deck and hull of the Discovery. Boom 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 boom. Violent explosions continued to be heard from the deck of the Discovery. The Discovery shook violently, and the entire warship was shrouded in explosions and thick smoke. After this warship was attacked by such powerful firepower, it was difficult to withstand the huge destructive power. The Gaia Knight and the Patroness kept bombarding the Discovery with platoons. Just as these 3 warships were fighting fiercely, become a Zheng in the nearby waters. A huge ship worth 100 meters was floating on the sea. The hull of this ship is strong, with a length of meters. It is also comparable to a heavy warship. The deck of the ship is covered with tall trees, which looks like a tropical jungle. On the huge sail, there is a pattern like an orangutan. Judging from the characteristics of the pattern, this is also a pirate ship. On the side of the hull, there are two huge mechanical devices inserted into the sea water to act as. There are also many types of doors on the side of the hull. These doors open and hang down strips of leather air pipes. In the sea below the hull, groups of divers in leather wetsuits are connected to air pipes above. They are here to investigate the situation in the ocean. In the sea water, divers carefully observe their surroundings. On the deck of this pirate ship, a huge orangutan-like figure in a green captain's coat sat on a chair. His face could not have been more like that of an orangutan. There is also long amazing golden hair on the back of the head. Okay, now it's time for my show. The orangutan-like human stood up and said. He holds up a microphone. Putting his mouth on the microphone, he took a deep breath. This microphone is connected to two mechanical devices inserted into the sea water on both sides of the hull. The parts where the two mechanical devices are inserted into the sea water each have a huge microphone for sound amplification. La la la. The orangutan-like humans began to sing loudly. Like a tenor singer. The microphone in his hand transmitted the sound to two huge loudspeakers on both sides of the ship. The huge loudspeaker spreads the sound waves in the sea water. Sound waves travel rapidly through sea water. When the sound waves touch the reefs, corals, and various marine organisms on the seabed, echoes are produced. The divers under the hull are trying hard to listen to these echoes with their ears. These divers were able to identify Yamato species based on the echoes they listened to. To successfully determine which direction has the size of what object. Due to the static seabed reefs, corals are different from the dynamic seabed fishes and other organisms. Dynamic biological echoes are more flexible and vary in size. These divers use this to determine what the object is. Some divers who had gained information about the success then broke out to report. Report to the boss that there are whales in the direction of Banshong. Report to the boss, there is a school of sardines at 11 o'clock. Report to the boss, there is a reef in the direction of 13 o'clock. The orangutan-like humans on deck listened to the messages. This orangutan-like human being is the captain of the orangutan pirates who are active in this area. The crew members of the Exploration King Gorilla refer to him as the boss. This pirate group is the Orangutan Pirates. Specialized in salvage and seabed exploration for the purpose of activities. The Explorer King Orangutan looks at the divers. Well, I still want to get some seafood for lunch today. But, should I have whale meat or a sardine dinner? The Explorer King Orangutan fell into thinking. Just as the orangutan was thinking, another diver rushed out of the sea suddenly. The diver looked very seriously at the Explorer Orangutan on board. Report to the boss that I found 3 ships 18 nautical miles away at 15 o'clock. The ships are huge. And there seems to be a huge explosion. The diver reported this important information. There are huge ships and explosions. The Explorer King Orangutan fell into deeper thinking. And the orangutan pirates have another identity besides exploration and salvage. That is a powerful armed force that is cruising around Gaia Island and is hostile to Mayor Grandet. There's fighting around here. Well, doubtful. The orangutan has lost some contact with him. It can't be him, the Explorer King Orangutan said suspiciously. But now that time is running out, the Explorer King Orangutan immediately made a decision. All divers back on board. Head to 15 o'clock 18 nautical miles at full speed and prepare for battle. The Explorer King Orangutan gave the order. The divers of this pirate ship quickly climbed to the door on the side of the hull and got in. The entire pirate ship began to sail and turn the rudder at full speed. Move towards the target area. At the same time, crews on all decks quickly prepared for battle. A bloodbath will unfold. The addition of this pirate ship will turn the battle situation around dramatically. In the waters where Discovery is located, this heavy warship, which has lost its ability to act, is being violently bombarded by two security force heavy warships. Boom 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 boom. Dense shells were fired in rows. Hit on the deck and hull of the Discovery. The three giant wooden masts have all been destroyed and broken. The hull was also severely damaged. On the hull deck, Rog and Sauron were fighting bravely. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 464. Look at this. Rog used the hand of the huge tree to throw a cannonball. Boom. There was an explosion, and another shell hit the deck of the Patroness on the right. Look at me. Sanji kicked a cannonball away, hitting the Gaia Knight on the left. However, there were even more shells fired by the opponent. Almost row upon row of bombardment. These shells were bombarded and caused great damage. Crow. Demon Hunt. Zoro used 3 swords to cut apart a large number of cannonballs. Hell of the Wind. The spring water goddess used wind magic to shoot dozens of wind knives. Intercept and detonate the shells in half. Rubber dot balloon. Luffy inflated into a balloon. Bounce the incoming artillery shells away. Even some shells returned and hit the warships of all sides. Usopp and Chopper manning a heavy artillery together. The enemy army consciously destroyed most of the artillery on the Discovery ship. Now Usopp can only bombard with a single cannon. Usopp, come on. Chopper loaded a heavy artillery shell into the cannon. Usopp aimed his heavy artillery at the middle mast of the Patroness on the right side. Emission. Uso pulled the cannon's pull cord. Boom. The heavy artillery shell was fired. Hit the base of the Patroness middle mast. Boom. Accompanied by a violent explosion. The Patroness middle mast cylinder was destroyed by the explosion and force of the shell. The huge mast came down. Well done, Chopper shouted happily. Usopp looked anxious. Even so, the opponent's firepower still has the upper hand. On top of the Patroness. After the middle mast belly was lowered, all the officers and soldiers on the ship were shocked. The captain of the Patroness said in surprise, "There is such a powerful marksman in the enemy's absence." But although the middle mast was destroyed, but the Patroness is still able to bombard the crumbling Discovery with rows of powerful artillery. Discovery is now extremely damaged. Basically, it can only be anchored on the sea surface and become a very obvious target. The Gaia Knight and the Patroness continued to bombard the Discovery with volleys of artillery. On the bottom of Discovery's ship, the Ninja King, who had dived into the sea before, found 2 shockingly large holes in the bottom of the ship. In the middle and middle rear of the hull, 2 shockingly large holes were filled with seawater. Although Sanji and the others urgently closed the watertight compartment, but the hull was already flooded with seawater and 3 giant wooden masts were destroyed. This allowed the warship to float on the sea. Discovery is already in jeopardy. Although the enemy did not continue to use anti-ship torpedoes. However, the intensive artillery fire will sooner or later send this heavy warship into the rolling waves. On top of the Gaia Knight, the captain of the warship looked at the severely damaged Discovery. "It's just tragic. That's what happens to people who fight against the security forces," the captain said very coldly. At this time, an officer suddenly reported, "Report, Captain, there is an emergency." "What?" the captain asked, looking at the nervous officer. "It's a pirate ship. According to the long-range telescope observation, a pirate ship is heading this way. And the characteristics of that pirate ship are none other than the detection of the Saruyama United Army," the officer said urgently. "Road. "It's them." The captain of the Gaianites' expression changed drastically. He never thought that in pursuit of the discovery, he would accidentally encounter the opponent that caused them and even the entire Demon Valley City Security Force a headache, the Aru Mountain United Army. In the Magic Valley city of Gaia Island, there is the rule of Mayor Grandet, so there is a resistance force. That is the Ape Mountain United Army. The captain of the Gaianite turned ugly. He hastened to order. "Ready for battle. The target is Utan probe. Permission to use anti-ship torpedoes." The Gaianite quickly entered a state of alert. On the deck of the approaching Ultan probe, the Explorer King uses a large telescope to observe the three warships in the warring sea area. Now the three warships can be seen fighting with the naked eye. Observing with a large telescope even saw that the Discovery was bombarded by two warships from two countries. As expected, the Demon Valley City Security Forces participated in the battle. But what happened to this warship? There are some ways to explore the King Orangutan. Now that he had seen the Discovery, he could be sure that it wasn't his partner, the victorious hunter, that was being attacked. A crew member asked strangely, "What is going on with this warship?" It is indeed a heavy warship that can be hundreds of meters in size. But what kind of force does it belong to? The explorer King Orangutan also said in confusion, "It's really strange. According to intelligence, some warships from other countries have been to Gaia Island in the past. But it is impossible for the security forces to attack them like this without permission. After all, it will cause international disputes. If the navies they don't even have the guts to attack warships. Who are they?" Another crew member said, "This warship doesn't belong to the pirates, does it?" The explorer King Orangutan was stunned when he heard this, and then he said, "Yours too. There are some powerful pirates in this world who can sweep through thousands of armies and shock the earth. The Yonko in the second half of the Grand Line are these people, as are the King's Shishibukai. And the legendary characters of the long-dead pirate King Roger are even more so. It's not surprising that some powerful pirates have warships. Either snatched or bought through a middleman." A crew member asked, "Boss, if this is really the case, then how should we act? The other party must have discovered us." The explorer King Orangutan thought for a while and said, "Anyway, we are enemies of the security forces. Now let's take advantage of them being restrained and try to sink one of their warships. Hurry up and give the order, and all the crew members are ready to fight. All the artillery is focused on bombarding the warship on the far side first." The explorer King Gorilla issued a formal order. "Yes, boss. The crew on Utan Discovery are all ready to fire." The pirate ship entered the war zone from the front left side of the Discovery. Judging from the Utan Discovery, the Gaianite is at the outermost of the three warships. The prow of this large pirate ship has a huge orangutan-like carving. The carved mouth is opened by a mechanical device. A heavy artillery sticks out. Inside, the crew manning the heavy artillery used range-finding machinery to measure the Gaianite's position. The gunner adjusts the angle of the heavy artillery. The shells have been loaded. The distance and direction have been adjusted and prepared. Fire! The cannon in the orangutan's carved mouth on the bow of the Utan detector fires. A heavy artillery shell with a diameter of 2 meters was fired. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 465. The Gaianite was preparing to target Utan probe with its torpedo tubes. Before they adjusted their position, they saw a huge heavy artillery shell flying towards them rapidly. A heavy artillery shell with a diameter of 2 meters hit the deck of the Gaianite. Boom! The huge explosive force distorted the parts of the deck hit by the bullet, and the entire warship shook violently. Even the officers and soldiers operating the torpedo tubes were washed into the sea by the huge air wave set off by the explosion. After violent shaking, the Gaianite finally stabilized. But almost all the crew, including the captain, were staggering. On the deck of Utan detector, the explorer King Orangutan was very satisfied to see the tragic situation of Gaianite. Sure enough, the super gorilla cannon is really powerful, the explorer King Gorilla said proudly. The super gorilla cannon in the mouth of the gorilla statue at the front of Utan probe is powerful enough to penetrate the deck and hull of a heavy warship made of steel and high-quality wood. The super gorilla cannon on this pirate ship is reloaded again. The gunners took aim at the Gaianite again. Emission. Another 2-meter diameter heavy shell was fired from the super gorilla cannon. The heavy shell hit the Gaianite again. But this time it's not the deck, but the side of the ship. Boom! With a shocking explosion, the hull on the side of the Gaianite was torn apart. The smoke and flames from the explosion then filled the inner deck of the warship's volley of gunfire. When zheng. There was complete chaos on board the Gaianite. At this time on the Discovery, whether it is Rog or Sanji, or Usopp, or Sauron, or Luffy, or Chopper, or Robin, or Nami, or the goddess of spring water. They all looked at the Gaianite on the left in shock. The Gaianite was bombarded by unidentified ships. Who is this? Usopp said in surprise. How could such a ship attack them? Sanji asked confused. You can't help us anymore, Zoro said strangely. How is that possible? Rog said. Saved Nami said full of doubts. Except that everyone on the Discovery was shocked. The Patroness on the right was also shocked. The captain and officers and men of the Patroness even suspended their attack on the Discovery. On the deck of the Patroness, the captain and officers and soldiers looked at the bombarded Gaianite in shock. How could this happen? The captain of the Patroness said in shock. He couldn't believe that the Gaianite had been attacked like this. Captain, we found that the attacking ship in the distance is the Yuan exploration of the Yuanshan United Army, an officer hurriedly reported. The captain said, so that's it, it's them. He was also surprised. It turned out that he had met an old opponent. The Ape Mountain Allied forces have long been opposed to the Magic Valley City security forces. The captain quickly issued an order, saying, prepare to attack the incoming enemy ships first. The Patroness began to move forward. No more platoon bombardment of Discovery. The Patroness has prepared anti-ship torpedoes to deal with the Ultan Discovery. After seeing the Patroness leave to deal with the Ultan Discovery, Rog and Sanji turned their attention to the injured Gaianite on the left. Everyone, no matter what, we have to find a way to solve this warship, Rog said. Yes, we want to kill the enemies on this warship. They actually ignore that there are 3 ladies here. I will never allow the ladies to be put in danger, Sanji said. After hearing this, Luffy said, okay, kill them. Zoro clenched his katana and said, kill them all. Rog looked at the Gaianite on the left. To deal with the enemy now is to find a way to attack there. Rog manipulated the giant wooden hand to put it down. Okay, everyone. Now how about we go to that warship for a close fight, Rog said. Zoro and Sanji looked at Rog suspiciously. However, they saw nothing after seeing the giant wooden hand controlled by Rog. Rog first lifted Sauron up with his giant wooden hand. Then he threw Zoro like a baseball. Under the power of the giant wood hand, Sauron quickly flew above the Gaianite. Zoro started to use sword skills in mid-air. 3-sword style. Tornado. Zoro's body spins with 3 katana swords. The sword energy formed a huge tornado-like sword energy. At this time, there was a large group of officers and soldiers on the deck of the Gaianite. These officers and soldiers had barely recovered from the shock of being shelled. Now Sauron suddenly flew over again. What is this? The officers and soldiers on the Gaianite said in surprise. Sauron himself slashed out the tornado sword energy. The tornado sword energy raged on the deck of the Gaianite. All officers and soldiers encountered were beheaded. But it wasn't just Sauron who killed them. Rog waved his giant wooden hand and threw Luffy over. Luffy landed on the deck after being thrown. Wow, the landing was not as good as expected. Luffy stood up and said. Because the Discovery is more than 200 meters away from the Gaianite, it is difficult for Luffy to reach here. Because the stretching of the rubber arm also has a limit. After Luffy arrived here, he looked at the security officers and soldiers on the deck. Okay, let's have a big fight, Luffy said, clenching his fists. Luffy first aimed at several nearby officers and soldiers, and he waved his fists. Rubber. Machine gun. Luffy punched out densely with both fists. The 5 surrounding security officers and soldiers were beaten. 5 officers and soldiers were knocked to the ground. After these officers and soldiers were knocked to the ground, Luffy ran quickly to continue fighting. On the deck of the warship, Luffy was at ease. He made full use of his rubber ability to knock out the security forces one by one. Zoro and Luffy are fighting fiercely here. However, on the deck of the Discovery, Sanji did not come because he needed to protect Nami and the others just in case. However, Usopp and Chopper can continue to bombard the Gaianite with heavy artillery. Fire! Usopp pulled the cannon's cord again. Boom! A heavy artillery shell was shot out. The heavy shell hit the side of the Gaianite. Although the Gaianite was severely damaged, and there were Sauron and Luffy fighting and making trouble on it. But the remaining combat power is still invisible. There is already chaos on the Gaianite. The captain of the warship hurriedly led the officers and soldiers into a combat state. How could this happen? In addition to being bombarded, the pirates from the previous ship also came here, the captain said in disbelief. Now there are more than officers and soldiers on board the Gaianite, and more than people have been injured or killed. Of course, many of them were caused by shells from Mutant Discovery. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 466. There is already chaos on the Gaianite. If this continues, the warship will soon be completely destroyed. The captain of the Gaianite saw his own troops being beaten to a pulp by Zoro and Luffy, who had suddenly come over. Sure enough, these pirates are powerful. Once they engage in close combat, they are invincible, said the captain of the Gaianite. But he turned his attention to the Patroness, and it was obvious that the Patroness was desperately going with Utan probe. The captain looked at the Discovery, which was already severely damaged. There was hatred and indignation on his face. It's all because of tracking this warship. Almost all of us are going to die here. The captain looked at the Discovery with hatred. He quickly said to an officer on the side, "Use the remaining anti-ship torpedoes to destroy this warship." "Yes, Captain." The officer hurriedly carried out the order. The Gaianite is now almost trapped in the fate of its crew member Zhang, who is destined to be destroyed. But this captain must drag Discovery into the water no matter what. A group of officers and soldiers soon came to the torpedo tube on the right side of the Gaianite. This group of officers and soldiers took advantage of the chaos and quickly adjusted the torpedo tubes. At this time, the Discovery and the Gaianite are almost side by side. So it is very convenient to attack. The anti-ship torpedo has been adjusted. Emission. The officer gave the order. The anti-ship torpedo tube fired a torpedo. Then the second, then the third, and finally the fourth. The 4 anti-ship torpedoes only swam towards the Discovery, which was 200 meters away. Rog and Usopp, who were on the Discovery, looked at these anti-ship torpedoes in shock. Anti-ship torpedoes cut waves of spray on the sea. The first anti-ship torpedo hit the bottom of Discovery's hull. Boom, there was a loud noise. The front part of Discovery's hull began to explode violently. The entire warship of the Discovery trembled violently. Next, the second anti-ship torpedo also hit the front end of the Discovery. Boom. There was another violent explosion. Discovery was also hit and exploded in its front crouch. The big hole that exploded this time was connected with the previous one, causing even more serious damage. Then the third and fourth bombs also hit the front of the Discovery's hull one after another. The violent explosion created a huge hole in the front end of the Discovery's hull. After the Discovery received such a strong blow, the hull quickly tilted towards the front. On the deck of the Discovery, Rogue, Sanji and Usopp were all violently shaken and fell to the deck. Now standing up again, I saw that the deck and even the hull of the entire warship were tilted. "What's wrong with this ship?" Usopp said in shock. "It seems that the bottom of the Discovery was completely damaged by those torpedoes," Rogue said. "Is it difficult to avoid the fate of sinking?" Sanji said. The Discovery, whose bottom was completely destroyed by anti-ship torpedoes, at this time, sea water frantically poured into the front of the hull. The entire heavy warship tilted sharply toward the front. The deck is also naturally sloped. Everyone is sliding forward. "Oh help!" Nami yelled while sliding. "Sister Nami, I'm here." Sanji quickly jumped to Nami's side and grabbed Nami. Sanji looked at Nami, who was in his arms, and said comfortingly, "Sister Nami, don't worry. I will protect you." "Thank you, Sanji," Nami said with tears on her face. Nami was held tightly in her arms, and Sanji was filled with immense pride and happiness. Protecting Nami's safety is Sanji's goal. However, the hull still tilted toward the front, and Sanji also began to slide. At this time, Rogue manipulated the giant wooden hand to block the two of them. "Thank you, Roger," Sanji said. "The situation is so urgent now, I'm afraid we need to abandon the ship," Rogue said. "Abandoned ship," Usopp said after hearing this. Sanji also felt a little regretful and said, "There is no other choice but to do this. Now that the Discovery has suffered unprecedented serious damage, I am afraid it must be abandoned." Just as the Discovery's hull was sinking and tilting violently forward, the Gaia Knight was on the side. Both Sauron and Luffy saw this. Other officers and soldiers were also shocked. But then they burst into cheers. "Long live the pirates' ship sank!" These beaten-up security officers and soldiers shouted loudly. Luffy looked at the sinking Discovery and shouted, "Rogue, Sanji, Nami." Sauron gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it!" The captain of the Gaia Knight also turned grim upon seeing it. "Okay, even if we sink to the bottom of the sea, we will still drag you to be buried with us," the captain said hysterically. "Is this really the case?" Suddenly a gloomy voice sounded. The captain of the Gaia Knight warship also had a chill running down his spine. He turned around, only to see a man in a black ninja costume standing behind him. It is the King of Ninjas. After investigating the bottom of the Discovery just now, the Ninja King took the opportunity to swim and sneak into the Gaia Knight. He looked at the captain in front of him. The captain discovered that the other party had a bad background. He quickly ordered to those around him, "Kill him." But just after he gave the order, he saw more than a dozen corpses lying on the ground. It was the officers and soldiers who accompanied him. The Ninja King looked at him with dark eyes, like the eyes of a crow in the dark. The captain stepped back quickly. He quickly took out a pistol and aimed it at the Ninja King in front of him. Bang 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 bang. A bullet was fired. But when all the bullets in the pistol were fired, he was surprised to see that the figure in front of him had disappeared without a trace. The King of Ninjas disappeared as well. "How can it be?" the captain said in surprise. Suddenly a sharp wire was caught in his neck. He suddenly felt someone behind him. The Ninja King strangled the captain's neck with a very thin metal wire on his back. The Ninja King tightened his grip on the wire. The captain's throat was tightened and he was in excruciating pain. When he was still conscious, the voice of the Ninja King sounded. "Dare to hurt my partner. You don't regret dying." The wire is tightened thoroughly. The eyeballs of the captain of the Gaia Knight nearly popped out. His face was extremely contorted. Finally, the King of Ninjas retracted the metal wire, causing the opponent's body to fall. Glancing at the captain's body again, the Ninja King turned his gaze to the silent Discovery. Discovery continues to be silent as Zheng. With the influx of numerous seawater, the front end of the huge warship's hull sank violently. The entire warship was in dilapidated condition, and above it was Rog and the others who were in the middle of an emergency operation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 467. The Discovery is now severely damaged, and Rogue and Sanji have no other option but to abandon the ship. Hurry up and get to the inner cabin of the warship. Take the melee and leave here, Rogue said. Rogue, Sanji, and Usopp hurried to the inner cabin through the passage inside the Discovery cabin. Because Discovery's hull tilted, and it was violently attacked before, some damage was caused to the cabin of the warship, which affected the general school. But everyone still went to the inner cabin. In the inner cabin, the Mary is still here. After they separated from everyone in Vales, it was because of the Discovery. It is to keep the Mary hidden in the inner cabin of the Discovery. It's almost like a whale in the belly of a whale. The length of Discovery alone can reach meters. The Melis hull is only 20 meters long. There is even a huge difference in size. Usopp saw the Mary and said, "Long time no see, Mary." Nami said, "Now is not the time to reminisce about old friendships. Release the ship quickly." Sanji rushed to the mechanism in the inner cabin and turned on the mechanism. Buzz. Accompanied by the sound of mechanical operation for a while. The door to the inner cabin was opened. A huge hatch on the side of the Discovery was opened, letting in sunlight from outside. Including Rogue, Sanji, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Robin and the Fountain Goddess all boarded this pirate ship. The inner cabin was also quickly filled with seawater. "Get out quickly." Sanji rowed. Rogue and Sanji, Usopp and Chopper waved the large oars together, and quickly let the pirate ship go out from here. The pirate ship is finally getting out quickly from the inner cabin. After a long time, the Melee sailed on the sea again. Bask in the bright sunshine from the sky. The Melee's simple hull, sheep's head-like bow and sails are all bathed in the sun. The sea breeze blew the Mary's sails, and Rogue and Sanji slid the oars together, allowing the pirate ship to move quickly. Roger looked back at the Discovery. Discovery is already sinking at an accelerated rate. This warship that accompanied everyone to fight on the sea after coming out of Alabasta not only witnessed the friendship with Ver and the officers and soldiers of the Seago Kingdom, but also went through many ups and downs. "We will always remember you," Rogue said with emotion. "Friend, rest in peace," Sanji said. Both Chopper and Usopp were slightly teary, and they also had some feelings for this warship fighting side by side. "We will continue to take risks bravely," Usopp said. "Wow, it took us so long." "Thank you so much for your hard work," Chopper said with tears. Nami saw the sunken Discovery. As a navigator, she had a special understanding of ships. "The Mary and we will continue to complete your mission," Nami said seriously. Robin and the Goddess of Spring looked calmly at the sinking explorer. They also used this quiet gesture to bid farewell to Discovery. On the Gaia night, Sauron, Luffy, and the King of Ninjas all saw the Mary rushing out of the cabin of the Discovery. "And everyone is above deck. It's great that everyone is okay," Luffy said with a high chest. "It turns out they were all on the Mary," Zoro said with a happy expression. The King of Ninja looked at the Melee and the people on it and said, "Everyone is fine, that's good." The three looked at the sinking Discovery again. The front end of the Discovery has completely sunk, and the remaining middle and rear parts are also sinking rapidly. In this battle, Discovery was hit by hundreds of shells and 6 deadly anti-ship torpedoes. These injuries caused this brave warship to die heroically in the sea. The ultimate destination for soldiers is to die on the battlefield. It is an honor for warships to sink the sea. Discovery's hull continued to sink. Then even the stern of the boat gradually submerged into the sea water. "Brave ship," Luffy said with rare seriousness. "Thank you for holding on for so long," Zoro said. "We won't let you sink in vain," the Ninja King said. The stern of the Discovery also sank into the sea. There are also bubbles that keep coming up. The heroic warship continued to sink slowly to the bottom of the sea. But now there is the Gaianite. Although this heavy warship is in chaos, it may still pose a threat to the melee. After all, the Mary, as a small sailing ship, is not as resistant as the Discovery. Some remaining security forces aboard the Gaianite saw the melee escape. "Hurry up and open fire to sink that pirate ship." The officers and soldiers of the security forces on the Gaianite began to concentrate their firepower on the melee. On the Mary, Roger and Sanji are speeding away. Suddenly, two shells flew over. Hit the sea around the Mary. Boom boom boom. Two shells exploded after hitting the sea, splashing huge waves. The sea water formed by the waves hit everyone like rain. "Ah, that's terrible," Usopp said in horror. "They are attacking again," Rog said. "Usopp, hurry up and fight back," Sanji said. At the same time, Sanji quickly gave up paddling. At this moment, Robin suddenly crossed his hands. "Okay, leave it to me," Robin said. Those arms that Robin created were all about picking up the oars again. Now Roger, Sanji, and Usopp and Chopper are free to fight and defend. "Leave it to you, Sister Robin," Sanji said. Rog said to Nami, "Now it's all up to you to take the helm." Nami said, "Okay." Nami hurried to the helm of the Mary. The goddess of spring also stood behind the sails of the Mary. She raised the iron axe and whispered the magic spell in her mouth. A wind force formed around the iron axe, and it was getting bigger and bigger. The huge wind blew against the sails of the Melee. The Mary began to move at an alarming speed. It is comparable to many extremely fast sea fish. "That's so fast," Usopp said in shock. "The goddess's wind power is really powerful," Sanji said admiringly. "The goddess of spring water once used wind magic to speed up heavy warships like the Discovery. The more clever and flexible Mary is even more amazingly fast." Rog saw the Melee moving so fast and said, "It's such a fast speed. If it's like this, why should we avoid it? Let's use the speed advantage to kill this warship." "Okay" is the way for everyone. Although the Discovery sank, the Mary will continue to fight. Nami at the helm of the Mary turned the Mary around. Started to quickly circle the huge and bulky Gaianite and start the battle. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 468. ID Con 1664341. Okay, let's take a look at my cannonballs first. Usopp manned a heavy gun on the Mary's stern. This heavy artillery was originally on the Discovery, with a caliber of centimeters, and it is a very powerful flat-fire gun. "It's loaded," Chopper said. Usopp aimed the muzzle at a cannon on the side of the Gaianite. Emission. Usopp pulled the cannon's cord. Boom. A shell was fired. The rate of fire of the flat-fire gun is very fast, and the trajectory is also very straight. The shell struck a gun on the side of the Gaianite. Boom. An explosion was heard, destroying the cannon and killing the 3 gunners. "Well done," Chopper said happily. He quickly helped Usopp reload the next shell. Sanji saw Usopp's achievements and held a cannonball in his hand. "Humph, everyone is working so hard. Especially the ladies are working so hard. How can I not show off my skills?" Sanji tossed the cannonball he was holding. Then the body tilted up and rotated around the right leg. Meal delivery. Sanji kicked the cannonball with his right leg, and the cannonball flew towards the Gaianite at a very high speed like a heavy artillery fire. A cannon on the side of the Gaianite was hit. The shell caused a violent explosion. Destroyed the artillery directly and killed the gunners. Rog saw the battle between Usopp and Sanji, and said, "Okay, since this is the case, then it's time for me to deal a fatal blow to the enemy." Rog once again put the wooden stake of the giant wooden hand on his right arm. The power of the plant fruit in the body was used, and the giant wooden hand quickly grew out from the front of the stake. The giant wooden hand soon grew to a size large enough to crush a yak to death. The arms formed by the huge trees look scary enough. The remaining security forces on the Gaianite were shocked when they saw such a huge tree arm growing out of the small melee. What kind of monster is this lying on the ground? This is the emotion of the remaining security forces on the Gaianite. Rog did not attack like throwing shells. Instead, he clenched the fist of the giant wooden hand. Always ready to strike like a boxer, Nami is now operating the Mary to attack around the Gaianite like a speedboat. Roger waited for another chance. However, during this time, the enemy's shells also came. Boom 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 boom. The shells bombarded them intensively. But Nami swayed the melee from left to right to avoid the shells perfectly. A few who slipped through the net were blocked by Sanji's flying kick. As expected of Ms. Nami, the perfect steering. As expected of a goddess, such a strong wind makes the ship look like a speedboat. As expected of Miss Robin, your beautiful arms make the sailing ship even faster. Flexible Sanji praised with full of admiration. However, Rog was still wholeheartedly waiting for the Mary to reach that important position. Finally the Mary sailed to the stern of the Gaianite. Here, or in other words, the bottom area under the stern is the key point of this heavy warship. A real rudder. Rog's giant wooden hand punched with maximum strength. Crush it. The clenched fist of the giant wooden hand hit the huge rudder at the tail of the warship. There was a loud noise, and the main rudder at the rear of the Gaianite shattered. The parts that the heavy warship relied on to control its direction were destroyed. The main rudder of the Gaianite was destroyed. Roger also breathed a sigh of relief. In this way, this heavy warship has completely become a huge waste that has lost its ability to turn. A ship must be able to control its own direction. If you can't control your own direction, then you are bound to sail to the sea of death. The reason why Rog used the giant wooden hand to attack the rudder of the Gaianite was because the Discovery needed to control the rudder. Rog used the giant wooden hand to hold the main rudder at the rear to avoid the terrifying water flow. Now the Discovery is sunk, but Rog can give full play to the destructive power of the giant wood hand on the Gaianite. The Gaianite's aft main rudder was destroyed. This warship can be said to be completely messed up. With Nami at the helm, the Mary continued to attack around the heavy warship. On the Gaianite, Sauron, Luffy, and the King of Ninja fought bravely. The whereabouts of the Ninja King is like a ghost. It is unknown how these remaining security forces died. Although these security forces can also fight with weapons such as guns and sabers. But they are still far inferior to the security army in battle. After all, the security forces of these warships are mainly good at manipulating the artillery, torpedoes, and various facilities of warships. For fighting with guns and sabers will only be basic. The King of Ninjas now sliced open the neck of a security soldier. Blood was flying everywhere, and the security guard clutched his neck and fell to the ground shaking in pain. Where is he? The two security forces rushed to shoot with their rifles, but the Ninja King had disappeared without a trace. Before they came back to their senses, two shurikens flew to their throats. The two vigilantes fell to the ground dead. You don't regret dying? The Ninja King said coldly. The King of Ninja himself is actually quite cruel regardless of his identity or character. However, due to the sincerity and friendliness of Rog and Zoro, the Ninja King finally became very polite to everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates. But to the enemy, the Ninja King is still cold and decisive. Luffy fights on the deck of the Gaianite. After all, the more open the place, the more Luffy's rubber man skills can be maximized. Rubber. Tomahawk. Luffy jerked his legs upwards and stretched them. then quickly smash the foot down. Like a mighty battle axe. Luffy's feet hit several enemies gathered together like a battle axe. These enemies were hit before they could dodge. What? There was a horrible cry. The 7 enemies flew from the center to the surroundings as if hit by a battle axe that fell from the sky. Another person was almost smashed into a meat pie. This guy is so powerful. He is not afraid of bullets and shells at all. Kill him with hand-to-hand combat. At the order of an officer, more than 30 security forces rushed over with sabers in hand. Kill. These security forces rushed towards Luffy brandishing their sabers. Luffy looked at these security forces. Okay, let's go like this. Luffy suddenly extended his arms horizontally. The body is twisted into a twist at the same time. Then start swinging away in reverse. Rubber. Flurry. Centering on himself, Luffy stretched his arms and spun around. It's like a dancer spinning and dancing. These security forces were all frightened when they saw the extremely fast Luffy hitting them with his arms flying wildly. Dong 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 dong. Groups of vigilantes were hit. The whole person fell to the ground. More than 30 security forces were quickly knocked to the ground like mowing grass. Luffy finally retracted his arms and stopped dancing.